My father-in-law walked me down the aisle. He wasn't supposed to be the one doing it. But when you're standing at the back of a venue, with 2 empty chairs reserved in the front row, if you make do with what love actually shows up, that's where I'll start. Not at the beginning. Not with the whole story of how I got there, but with that moment. When the coordinator touched my elbow and said, "We should probably go." And I nodded, because what else do? You walk forward. You marry the man who loves you. You don't let the people who chose not to show up steal the day too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Claire. I'm 31 years old. I'm an environmental consultant based in Ottawa. And I have a younger sister named Brooke. She's 26. And for as long as I can remember, our family has operated on a very simple, unspoken rule: Brooke comes first. I don't say that bitterly. I've had enough therapy to say it almost neutrally now. It's just a fact. The way the winters here are long. Or the way the 417 is always backed up on a Friday. Just a thing that is true about my life. Growing up, Brooke was the one who got the figure skating lessons. The new winter coat every year. The laptop for high school graduation. I got the hand-me-downs. The community center programs. And a card that said they were proud of me. I was accepted to the University of Ottawa for environmental science. My parents gave me a hug and told me student loans exist for a reason. When Brooke was accepted to a business program at Western 2 years later, they threw her a party, paid her first year's tuition outright, and drove her to London with a carload of new bedding and a mini fridge they'd bought specifically for her residence room. I remember standing in our kitchen the weekend before Brooke left, watching my mother fold a new duvet cover into a laundry bag. And I did the math. I was carrying over $38,000 in student debt by that point. I had been working part-time at a coffee shop since I was 16. I had never once asked them to pay my tuition because I already knew the answer. But watching that duvet cover go into that bag, something in me just quietly closed a door. I graduated in 4 years. Found a contract position with an environmental firm. Converted it to full-time within 18 months. I was proud of myself. I did it without a safety net. And I did it well. During those years, my relationship with my parents was functional. Polite. We had Sunday dinners occasionally when I was in the city. I called my mother on her birthday. I showed up for Christmas. We didn't have the kind of relationship where I told them things. Not really. But we maintained the surface of one. Then, I met Daniel. Daniel is from a family that is almost aggressively warm. His mother calls just to check in. His father asks follow-up questions about things you mentioned months ago. The first time I had dinner at their house in Canada, his mother held my hand and said, "We've heard so much about you." I almost didn't know how to respond. I wasn't used to being talked about with affection. Daniel and I dated for 2 years before he proposed. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We planned the wedding for the following June. A small venue outside of Chelsea, Quebec, about 40 minutes from Ottawa. On the Quebec side of the river. It was beautiful. 60 guests. Dinner, under string lights. A fiddle player for the first dance, because Daniel's family has some East Coast roots and it felt right. I invited my parents. Of course I did. I also invited Brooke. Though we weren't close, I reserved the 2 front row chairs on my side for my parents. I had the florist do a small arrangement for those seats because I wanted them to feel special. 8 weeks before the wedding, Brooke bought a house in Calgary. She and her husband had been renting there since their wedding, the previous fall. And now they'd found a place they loved in a neighborhood called Brentwood. My parents, the moment they heard, booked flights to Calgary. I found this out, not from my mother, but from a photo she posted. There she was, in front of a new build in Alberta. Arm around Brooke. Grinning. The caption said, "So proud of this one. Our baby is a homeowner." I took a breath. I texted my mother to say congratulations to Brooke, and that I hoped the trip was fun. She replied with a heart emoji. 6 weeks before my wedding, I called my mother to confirm their attendance and go over a few logistics. She said they were coming, that they had it on the calendar, that she was looking forward to it. She asked if there would be a vegetarian option at dinner. I said yes. The call lasted 11 minutes. 3 weeks before the wedding, my mother called me. She said she had to tell me something and that she hoped I would understand. She said the drive from Ottawa to Chelsea was long, nearly 2 hours with traffic. She said, and my father's knee had been bothering him. She said they'd talked about it, and they didn't think they could make the full day. She asked if I could maybe do brunch the week after instead. I want to be precise about what she said, because I've replayed it enough times. She said the drive was too far. Chelsea, Quebec, 40 minutes from our front door. She said the 2-hour drive was too far. I did not say anything for a long moment. Then I said I understood and I would talk to her later. I hung up, and I sat on my kitchen floor for a while. Daniel found me there. He sat down beside me without asking any questions. After a minute, he said, "Do you want me to call my mom?" And I said yes. The wedding was the most beautiful day of my life. Daniel cried when he saw me. His father walked me down the aisle with a steadiness and a pride that I will never forget. His mother fixed my veil before I went in. The fiddle player was perfect. The food was perfect. The 2 chairs in the front row were empty, and everybody there could see them, and nobody said a word about it. Which was somehow exactly the right thing to do. At the reception, one of Daniel's aunts came up to me and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything about my parents. She just said, "You are so loved tonight." I held it together until I got to the bathroom. And then I didn't. For about 3 minutes. And then I washed my face and went back out to my husband and danced. Brooke texted me the morning of the wedding. It said, "Hope today is great," with a sun emoji. I read it once and put my phone down. My parents texted the following morning. My mother said it looked beautiful from the photos Daniel's cousin had posted online. My father said he was sorry they missed it, and that his knee had been really bad that week. I replied, "Thanks for the message." That was all I had. For 3 weeks after the wedding, I let myself just be a newlywed. We went to Tofino for our honeymoon. I spent a week watching the Pacific come in. I walked on Long Beach in the rain and felt far away from everything complicated. Daniel and I talked about the future. About maybe eventually leaving Ottawa for somewhere with a yard. I let myself be happy. I was happy. Then I got an email from a lawyer named Mr. Thériault, based in Ottawa. The subject line said it was regarding the estate of my maternal grandmother, Grandma Rose, who had passed away 14 months earlier, at the age of 83. I had been close with my grandmother. She had been the person in my family who saw me clearly, who came to my convocation, who sent me care packages during my undergrad, who once told me, very quietly, over tea at her kitchen table, that she thought I was the strongest person in the family and that she hoped I knew my own worth. She passed away the winter before my wedding. I flew home from a work trip in Vancouver to be at her bedside. Brooke sent flowers to the funeral home. I had assumed my grandmother's estate had been settled. My mother had handled everything. And I was told there wasn't much, some furniture. The contents of her apartment. A modest savings account. My mother said the account had barely covered the funeral, and some outstanding bills. I had no reason not to believe her. The lawyer's email said otherwise. Mr. Terrio explained that my grandmother had maintained a separate investment account that my mother had not disclosed to either him or to me during the initial estate process. He had recently been contacted by the financial institution after a routine compliance review, flagged the account as belonging to a deceased person with a named beneficiary on file. The beneficiary was me. Not my mother. Not Brooke. Me. The account held $61. Subai. My grandmother had been putting money in since I was 17. Every year. A quiet contribution. She never told me. She just did it. I sat with that number for a long time. Then I called Mr. Terrio. He walked me through what had happened. My mother had been the executor of the estate. The investment account had been disclosed to her by the financial institution shortly after my grandmother's death. She would have known about it. She had not informed the lawyer. I had not informed me. And had not transferred the funds to me as the named beneficiary. The account had simply been sitting there. He asked if I wanted to proceed with the formal claim. I said yes. I won't pretend the next few weeks were easy. There was a part of me, the part that grew up, hoping things would be different. The part that drove 4 hours to be at my grandmother's bedside. When Brooke sent flowers, that part of me wanted to call my mother and ask her to explain. To give her a chance to say it was a mistake. An oversight. That she had meant to tell me. But I thought about that duvet cover going into a bag for Brooke's residence room. I thought about the empty chairs in the front row. I thought about the 2-hour drive that wasn't actually 2 hours. And I decided I already knew what kind of oversight it was. Mr. Terrio filed the necessary paperwork. Because my grandmother had named me directly as beneficiary on the account, the funds did not pass through the estate, and my mother had no legal claim to them. The institution transferred the balance to me, within the timeline the lawyer had outlined. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open when the deposit hit my account. Daniel was at work. I was alone. I looked at the number, and I thought about my grandmother's kitchen table. And the tea. And what she said about knowing my own worth. I closed the laptop and I cried for a while. Not the 3 minutes in the wedding bathroom kind. The longer kind. Once I had the funds. Daniel and I sat down and made a plan. The first thing we did was clear the remainder of my student loans. $14,000, still outstanding. Which I had been paying down steadily for 9 years. I had the confirmation email framed. I know that sounds strange. But it felt important. 9 years of that weight. And then one morning it was just gone. The second thing we did was put a down payment on a semi-detached in Hintonburg. It needed work. The kitchen was original to 1987, and the bathroom had seen better decades, but it was ours. We got the keys on a Thursday in October and stood in the empty living room eating takeout on the floor because we didn't have furniture there yet. And I remember thinking, this is mine. I built this. Nobody handed this to me. The third thing I did, and this one was entirely mine. Daniel supported it, but I was the one who wanted it. I contacted the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Science and set up a small annual bursary in my grandmother's name. It's for a female student in environmental science who is self-funded, meaning no parental financial support. The amount isn't enormous, but it's something. It's Grandma Rose's money going to someone who needs it, the way I once needed it. That felt right in a way. I don't have adequate words for. My mother called me 2 weeks after the funds were transferred. She did not mention the account directly. She asked how the new house was coming, and whether we had sorted out the kitchen. I answered her questions plainly. At the end of the call she said, almost too casually, that she had been meaning to talk to me about some paperwork from the lawyer. I said that matter had been resolved. She went quiet for a moment. And then she said she had been intending to talk to me about it sooner. I said I was sure she had been. She didn't say anything after that for long enough that I said I had to go. And I hung up. My father sent a text 2 days later, saying he hoped there were no hard feelings, and that family is complicated sometimes. I read it. I didn't reply. Brooke sent a message through Instagram. Not even a direct text. That said she hoped I wasn't upset with mom and dad, and that everyone had been dealing with a lot. I read that one too. I didn't reply to that one either. I want to be honest about where things stand. Because I think people hear a story like this and expect some kind of dramatic confrontation. A kitchen table reckoning. Voices raised. Things finally said out loud. That's not what happened. What happened was quieter than that. And in some ways harder. I stopped reaching out. Not in an angry way. Not in a way where I sent a letter explaining myself or made a declaration. I just stopped being the one to call. The one to organize the Christmas visit. And the one to send the birthday texts first. I let it go quiet. And the quiet has held. It's been almost 8 months since the transfer came through. Daniel and I have the kitchen almost done. We went with butcher block countertops and open shelving, and it's warmer than anything I grew up with. His parents have dinner with us almost every other week. His mother has a key to our house, which she uses almost never, but which matters more than I can explain. The bursary was awarded for the first time in September. The recipient is a third-year student studying water systems and environmental policy. Her name is on a small document that also has my grandmother's name on it. And I have a copy on my fridge. Some days I still feel the weight of it. The chairs in the front row. The duvet cover. 14 months of my inheritance sitting in an account while I was making monthly loan payments, and they knew. Some days it lands harder than others. But then I look at the framed loan payoff confirmation on the wall. I look at the kitchen we built. I look at my grandmother's name on that document on the fridge. And I think about what she told me at her kitchen table. About knowing my own worth. I think she knew I would figure it out eventually. I think that's why she set it aside for me in the first place. I just wish she could have seen the kitchen.